All right. So, week one of module four, why philosophy matters and how to approach it. So, going into this week, before I even started this week, what I thought about philosophy was I thought it was mostly an exercise in futility. I I wouldn't say I thought it was pointless, but to me it seemed like it was just a bunch of people just sitting around mulling about all day on concepts that largely have no effect or have no bearing in reality. It's just kind of disconnected from our world, and they're debating such things that you're not going to know the answer to anyway. So, what's the point of, I guess, spending all your time thinking about it? So, I, it's not that I didn't respect philosophy. It just I couldn't care less about it, honestly. And I had a friend who would always, you know, throw these crazy questions at me, like, "How do you know if what you're experiencing is, your reality?" And I just always dismiss it because you just have to take it at face value. You can't waste your life thinking about all this stuff. You just accept it for how you see it. But this week, um, and the concepts that were gone over in this week, I thought were really, really beneficial. So the first thing that they laid out, give it 5 minutes. He told a story about how he'd listen to someone else give some kind of talk, and the first thing he said to him was, "I didn't like it because X, Y, and Z." And the guy responded to him, "It's fine that you don't like it because of X, Y, and Z, but you literally just heard it and you haven't thought about it at all. You need to take the time to just consider what I'm saying, to find the kernels of truth that are in my speech, because I have my own bearing on reality, and that's what I just spoke to you. And it's not only is it disrespectful and kind of impolite, it's also you're missing out on a lot of truth potential if you just dismiss everything you don't agree with. Because obviously, your beliefs that you have today aren't what you had when you were 5 years old, when you first started thinking about the world. You need to always be able to not dismiss information right off the bat. So I really like give it 5 minutes. Um, and because we don't have the same beliefs that we did whenever we were 5 years old, obviously they were influenced by what we heard. And we shouldn't ever think that we've, ascended to the top of or to the summit of all our knowledge. We shouldn't ever assume that we're at the end of the road for how much we can learn. There's always new stuff out there. There's always new stuff to kind of build upon your worldview, or perhaps even shift it entirely. So in this video, you have no idea how wrong you are. I loved it because in it, he goes across several examples of famous philosophers and scientists throughout history, like Einstein and Plato and Aristotle. These were men who were very smart, and they revolutionized the way that thinking was done in their time for a lot. But he also pointed out, for example, that they were very intelligent men, but they were also wrong about certain things. And this isn't something that you should make fun of, like dismiss them over. This is something that's human. There's always we can get a lot of things right, but if you get one element wrong, it kind of taints the whole picture. That doesn't mean you can't build off of what is right and remove what is wrong. And so they also talked about why philosophers make good entrepreneurs. And I thought this was kind of interesting because, like I said earlier at the beginning, I never really thought of philosophers being, practical in the real world at all. I thought they were just kind of in their own corner of intellectual thought, just doing their own thing. But that's not entirely correct, because here there's a bunch of different tech entrepreneurs, and the way that they're successful is because philosophers have a way of structuring the world. They want to understand the world around them. They want to come to grips with it. They want to find order in it. And this is where their role as tech entrepreneurs shine through, because this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring a little bit more structure to the chaos they see around them. They're trying to, I guess you could say that they're trying to solve problems that they find. And in a way, that's what philosophy is all about. They're trying to solve the problems of life that are posed to them, or the questions that they ask of themselves. And then finally, Brian Kaplan, he talked a little bit about why hypothetical thinking matters. And so I've read this huge economic treatise called Man, Economy, and State. And in it, it's important, if you want to understand economics, it's very important to remove all the excess variables that can influence other factors. You want to get it down. You want to get it down to the bare bones, so you can examine the issues for what they are, and not have to worry about X factor or Y factor potentially influencing it. And so I already had some idea about why hypothetical thinking matters, but here he pretty much lays out what I thought about it. He kind of talks. He doesn't dismiss them, but he doesn't like when people refuse to go along with these questions. He said that's a stupid question. That scenario is never going to happen. Well, probably not, but there's still a lot to be learned from someone if they answer that question truthfully. I'm not going to pull that lever. I'm not going to kill that person, or so you might judge that they don't want to be the cause of someone's death, or if they do pull the lever, they might be more utilitarian in their thinking. So, like you said, there's a lot of excellent, I guess, discussions to be had, but you need to first be willing to play by the game of the hypothetical questions and understanding the role that they play in our thought. So overall, I did like this week. I did enjoy it. I would like to say, perhaps in my prideful, tone of voice, that I was kind of at least halfway familiar with a lot of what was said. I knew that, people's personal biases kind of stop them from understanding the truth, and that a lot of times they're not willing to look past these biases for the actual truth. Kind of like in mathematics, there's infinity different ways of being wrong, but there's only one correct answer. And this is kind of true in philosophy. But just like in mathematics, there's also ways of being more correct than others. So if the correct answer is 10 and you get 11, well, you're much closer on base than if you had gotten, 2,000 for your answer. So you should always be, while you might not ever know if you attain, truth, you should always be aiming to achieve more truth. You should always be trying to root out your own personal biases and your own beliefs, and trying to find stuff that you can logically and intellectually defend based on arguments, and not just, well, I like it because that's just, I like it. That's not a proper, argument. You need to be willing to argue for your beliefs, for your opinions. They're not, I mean, everyone's allowed to have an opinion, but it's kind of irresponsible to have one that you can't defend. So all that being said, though, there were a couple of ideas that were new to me. For example, for the tech entrepreneurs, I didn't really know that philosophers made good tech entrepreneurs. I thought that was pretty cool. But it makes sense, because they're always trying to understand the world around them, and so are tech entrepreneurs. They're trying to they're trying to solve problems. Another thing that I thought was very, very interesting. So in this lecture, you have no idea how wrong you are. In it, he talks for a moment about certain people. What does he call them? He calls instances of blind sight. And this is when people, they think they're blind. Their brain tells them they're blind. But the way they react to the environment around them, they're not 100% blind. Something must be getting through to their brain because they can, keep themselves from tripping over something. But if they're blind, maybe they would have. And this, I'm not saying because obviously blind people have better senses around them, but they've done tests and people who say they're blind actually aren't. It's just their brain tricking itself into thinking I'm blind. And this is called blind sight. Another example of a situation kind of like this. Anosognosia. Okay, I butchered that word. But what this is people, they think that they're healthy. Their brain pictures them doing certain tasks that healthy people could do, like walking around, opening doors, living a life. But in reality, the example he gave was, in reality, they're paralyzed from the neck down. Like, they're not doing anything other than blinking and breathing. And I thought that was, I never heard of anything like that. And what he said to the audience was, you could all be paralyzed from the neck down and you don't even realize it. Now, I'm not sure to what extent these are actual problems with people, but just the fact that that's an actual issue, that people, their brains trick them. This is something that's so fundamental to us as people, as our own bodies. I'm waving my hand around. Is my brain tricking me to think that? Or am I actually just paralyzed from the neck down? It just, that kind of blew my mind. And if our brain can be wrong about something so fundamental as that, then it really begs the question, what else could my brain be wrong about? And it's easy to fall into the trap of that's for other people. Other people's brains are kind of messed up, but not mine. Well, we're all human, and how well do we really know ourselves? Who could say? So yeah, this whole week of lectures, especially this one video, I thought was probably the most excellent piece of the week. It really, I guess, it raised a lot of self-doubts in my mind because, like I just referenced, if my brain can be wrong about being paralyzed, or if a human brain can be wrong about the fact of me being paralyzed or not, what else am I wrong about? And these are some of the things that you don't really think about too much just in your day-to-day life. You just hold your beliefs and you defend them because they're yours, and what's yours you need to defend. And obviously we all like to imagine that we use logic and evidence and reasoning to defend our beliefs, but in reality, people are emotional. And this isn't other people and I'm the logical one. No, it's all of us. So that really, I guess, raised some doubts in my mind about, to what extent am I emotional with my beliefs? How well can I actually logically defend a lot of what I believe? And obviously I like to say that I can at least hold my own. I can answer some basic questions for some of the things and answer harder questions about others. But I don't know. I need to be willing to have more intellectual rigorism about me. So that's definitely something that was stirred up in me from this week. As far as this change in the way I look at the world, I wouldn't be as drastic as saying like it changed my worldview. Like I said, I was already at least halfway familiar with a lot of what was taught before I even came across it. Um, as far as a lot of us are wrong and biased, and we just need to have an open mind. Yeah, I would definitely say I agree with pretty much what was said. I think the strongest thing I'd take away from it is give it 5 minutes. After you listen to something you don't necessarily agree with, you need to take the time to mull about it because they have certain insights maybe that you don't have. And think about it for a second. And, number one, respect them as another person and hear them out because that's what human decency is all about, number one. But I mean, number two, you can still learn from other people. It's not only other people can learn from you. And I know I'm kind of guilty of this. I have, sometimes I have some arrogance about me in my beliefs, and maybe I shut other people down. So take 5 minutes or give it 5 minutes. I think it's probably true for pretty much 90% of the population. We've all kind of, at one point or another, shut someone else down because hey, that's the other side of the opinion. That's not my side. I don't need to hear you out. That's bad. It's really intellectually lazy, and it definitely struck a chord with me that hey, to some extent, or to a big extent, maybe perhaps you are guilty of this as well. So this was also something. This is probably the biggest thing that I like from this week. Give it 5. So yeah, that's what I thought about week 1, why philosophy matters and how to approach it. I really love going through this stuff, and for a lot of what I learned, for a lot of what I've read slash listened to, it just like a lot of things in life, you need to probably go back and listen to it or read it a second or maybe even a third time to really dig in to the meat of what they're saying. Because if you listen to it maybe once, uh, you'll hear it, but you won't catch the finer things. You won't be able to truly appreciate what it's trying to say. And yeah, so I've enjoyed week 1. Looking forward to week 2. And I want to thank you guys for watching my video.